Alberto, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. You and I are connecting today mainly through social media. And I'll start off by saying, well, I sit here and complain all the time about social media on this podcast. I don't like the gossip. I don't like the bad that comes with it, but there is some good. So I want to say that. And I think what's happening with us right now is part of that. I had released a podcast or two recently, and you sent in a really well thought through response. And I was so happy to receive it, as in really happy, because I'm just trying to promote dialogue. On the podcast, we talk about all kinds of issues. And we're in a small town. We have a lot of issues, and we are the solution for our issues. And to have somebody come onto social media and use that to advance a conversation, not just to sling mud, much respect and thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I think that's, I'm not a big fan of social media personally. I don't love it too much. And I think one of the problem is exactly what you said, that most of the people just use it to send straight comments about their opinion in a nasty way to someone else. And it's not about, social, it's community. It should be something where we share opinions and comment. It doesn't mean it's a place you can insult someone just because you're behind a screen and nobody's going to see you. I just, right before coming here, read an article about the Prime Minister of Canada who got addressed on social media because he posted on Twitter a photo of him carrying a bunch of donuts back to the cabinet meeting they were having. And a lot of people are like, oh, thanks for supporting the local business. And a bunch of people, that's way too much donuts. You're spending money, government money on that. And it's like, come on, guys, it's social media. It's the Prime Minister of Canada bringing donut back to the cabinet meeting. You don't need to address it as like how much you spend for each donut. It's just a place where to have a conversation, to know what people are doing, and I do like your podcast a lot. I think you're doing something great in kind of bringing a community together where a lot of people talk into, on the beach, at the cafe, and there is a lot of rumors circulating, a lot of things, but, there is not a common central point that people can all see and address some more serious things, because it's not about just coconuts and monkeys, which we love, but it's a developing town. So there is a lot of issues that come with that.
Well, you're going to have disagreements too. And something you had said one time, actually a little earlier, that made a lot of sense to me and it resonated was, it's okay to disagree. You disagree with a lot of your best friends sometimes, but you still can exist and you can still go through things without it having to really mess up the relationship.
Yeah, it's something that I think there is some cultural differences. I born and raised in Italy. I lived there for 27 years, and then I moved to London, New York, Los Angeles. Half of my life I've been out of Italy. So I'm at the place where my Italian roots are strong, as well as my accent. But I'm not an Italian. I'm an American citizen as well as an Italian citizen. And I kind of like come from all this different culture. I was talking with a friend yesterday about the fact that we're neither nor, we're neither American because we didn't grow up here and we didn't go to school here or whatever, but we're neither Italian anymore because we are just took a different path. We split at a certain point. And, part of my culture though as Italian is we're fiery. My wife, the first time she came to Italy and saw me talking to my sister at dinner over something silly, she thought we were having the fight of our life. And it was just probably whether we wanted white wine or red wine for dinner. You know what I mean? So we have that sort of I wouldn't say aggressive, but confrontational nature in conversation, passionate. But it's nothing. It's just we're talking emphatically. And we might disagree. I was telling you before that more than half of my best friends support the other soccer team of Rome. We have two main soccer teams. And it's a major thing. People hate each other with that, but then we're having dinner together and, drink and joke about every single thing. So everybody can have a different opinion. And that doesn't mean that you hate each other, you don't like each other. It means we just share a different opinion. In America, as you mentioned before, the polarization is very intense right now, also from a political perspective. And there is a little bit of fear factor, I believe, in the American culture, where if you disagree with someone, people think that there needs to be a confrontation. It needs to be solved one way or another. Someone needs to be right, someone needs to be wrong. And that's not necessarily the case. There is actually one of the most silly movies that I watched this year with Seth Rogen as an interesting part where, his best friend is playing a Democrat, very left-oriented journalist, and his best friend is a black dude who happens to be Republican, who never told him because he was afraid of his reaction. So for 20 years, his best friends had different political views, but they never spoke about it because they were afraid of each other.
Oh, that's hilarious. I feel that is what happens here. And right now, Nosara's kind of taken off. You've lived here for how long now?
It's 3 years now. We've been coming for about 7 years.
Okay, so you've seen the spike that's happened in recent years. And we have a lot of that same situation where people might have an opinion, but they're scared to say it.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of the confrontation. And in the States, if you look at the way we handle politics and religion, it's you believe what I believe, or you're just wrong, you're crazy. How could you even think that? We're very polarizing.
Exactly.
And now I kind of see that happening here. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I share that opinion. And now that I'm doing all the podcast, I listen so much to so many people sharing. A lot of people don't want to publicly say how they feel because they still want to be friends with people from the other side. So I've been watching this happen from the day that the temporary regulations were announced. And that's exactly what's happening. There's so many people who are scared to mess up their relationships. And what I'm trying to do is just get the dialogue going and let's get information flowing. Don't just kind of sit at your home and think your own thought and have tunnel vision. Let's get it out there. If you have questions, ask them. If you have an opinion, say it. This is kind of the time to do that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I appreciate you doing it.
I was actually surprised that, a couple of different people approached me after I posted that comment and they were like, "Oh, I read your comment. I really liked it." And I was like, okay, I didn't expect that. And I was also a little surprised because, okay, so you're on Facebook, you read what happens, but you never say anything, just as you say, because you're afraid to say something. And, sometimes it's good to just not say things,
That's true.
It's also, you don't need to.
Actually, probably most of the time, it's good to not say anything.
Yeah, there is an American say that everybody has their opinion like everybody has something else, how do you say it? You can cut this to a better thing. Everybody has opinions, just like everybody has assholes. You can cut this out. But,
no, we're leaving it. It's right.
But in general, you don't need to voice your opinion all the time. You can just, keep your opinion for yourself. For some time, if you feel like you want to discuss it with someone, you can discuss it. There is nothing wrong in having an opinion, and there's nothing wrong in having a different opinion. I personally always like to engage in conversation with people who have different opinions with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to do it in a way, I'm trying to learn to do it in the least and least confrontational way possible, because I actually think that people arguing their opinion, arguing their ideas, makes for compelling arguments and allows me to understand where they're coming from, understanding where their opinion comes so I can change mine. Because if I just keep being stuck with my opinion, I'm not smart. I'm just okay, I think that should be that way, that's it. And then if you don't explain to me why it shouldn't be that way, I'm never going to know why it shouldn't be that way, And then there are things that you never know until you do it. If you look at political situations, you never know, a trade agreement, whether you like it or not, how it's going to play it out in 15 years from now. We're not going to know it. So, you got to go with what you believe. And sometimes you believe you're right. Sometimes you believe you're wrong. And one of the things that I always loved about the American government prior to the past few years was that the system, compared to the Italian shit show of changing government every couple of years, is that you basically give someone power, and that person has 4 years to demonstrate that they are right or try to do them. And 4 years later, the people decide whether he did good or not, and then whether we want to change or not. And I actually really like that concept, because being in a place where if you say this, but you're of the other party, and I'm going to say no just because you're of the other party, even if I agree with the concept, it doesn't bring you anywhere. And I feel like to bring it down to the small community, something that happened in the whole Plano Regulador and NCA versus others story kind of got stuck into me versus you rather than what the town needs, and I think you trying to promote dialogue, it's a great thing to move forward.
I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to the people who've come on here to talk about this and share their opinion. Yeah. I really, really appreciate it. And a lot of what you were just saying, I think you're explaining why the traditional news doesn't work any longer. You just get a sound bite. You have 15 seconds to make a statement. And even look at the debates, like for the presidential debates in the U.S. It's really just to get a sound bite or a clip. You never had enough time to really hear where someone's at. And that's kind of where podcasts come in. When you can sit down and really hear where someone's coming from. You might not really agree with them or think you disagree with them, but if you hear where they're coming from in depth and let them explain themselves, you can at least be like, okay, all right, well, yeah. All right, that you can either make a new decision based off new information, or you can decide you didn't change anything, but at least you got to know where they're coming from. Yeah. So let's jump into kind of Nosara today. Like, what's your take on this place right now?
I had an interesting conversation yesterday, which kind of made me think, because I know I was coming here to see you, and conversation started with the concept of public road, and I know I'm taking it very wide, but at the end, I read the definition of public, which is of the ordinary people or of the community. So belonging to the community. And which made me think about, Nosara as a whole as a community, So what happens is that I feel people came to Nosara, to this community, which is a small town, surfing vibe, yoga. I love the nature. I love the jungle. I love being here. There is a lot of cool people around. And then a lot of the time, people forget that they're in a community. They buy their lot or they buy their house, and then all of a sudden, that 1,000 square meter, 500 square meter, whatever it is just theirs. Nothing up and nothing else counts. This is mine, and the rest is out. And to me, it's like, no, that's not really true. We all live here. The beach is public. If you throw something on the beach, it belongs to everybody. If you don't do a nice septic tank in your own 500 meters and you don't do your right thing, that all goes into the water where we all go. If you speed up on the road that you spoke with Cookie in the last podcast, you affect everybody, from animals to people to anything. So I feel like the people should, everybody should look at it. Okay, it's not just me here. It's a lot of people. And me, yes, I own this 500 square meter, 200, whatever you own, and I own my house, but I still belong to everybody, I belong to a general public, So whatever I do in my little piece of land, it actually affects the jungle, the animals, and the people around me. So before doing anything, do I think about is affecting them? Or do I just go with whatever I feel like doing? And the reason why I went so wide is because at the end, the Plano Regulador comes to address exactly that. Because people need rules, because otherwise they do whatever they want. And to me, it's like, we shouldn't even need rule if we will be respectful of everybody. If we just consider things, I don't want my septic tank to flow in the river that then flows in the thing and just, without filtering. I should not want it without having a regulation that tells me that I need to do percolatory tests and leach fields and things like this. I should just do it because that's what I want to do it. So unfortunately, that's kind of like a utopia dream in a way. But I really wish that people would take a little bit of a step back sometime and think like, hey, I'm in a community. I have 6 neighbors instead of 20,000 that I have in New York. And how am I affecting those 6 neighbors if I'm doing this versus that? And then, there is also the rule part, the Plano Regulador, the NCA, all that sort of things.
Hey, let's clarify for anyone listening the Plan Regulador part. I'll just do it real quick, just so someone following the conversation can understand. So we're in Nosara, we're in need of a plan regulador. And in Costa Rica, that's the term for basically a zoning plan. Now, Nosara has been small for a very long time, and we've been very fortunate to have for the most part, environmentally friendly type people here. And on this podcast, I've talked about it at length with Bobby Johnson, with Beverly Kidson. She has an episode coming up soon. Alice Olson, who kind of shared the story of how this all happened. It was a failed golf course project. They turned the golf course holes and made the green areas, and that's why we have the vibe we have today. The Nosara Civic Association has fought like holy heck to keep these in place, and they've had some controversy over the years, just like any other organization. Fast forward to today, Nosara has now gotten popular. Around 2013, 2014, the media caught hold, the press started, and then things kind of really took off. So where we're at today is we have an alarming amount of construction, in many people's opinions, and the plan regulador is going to take at least 3 years to get here. A lot of people think 5 or 10. So in the meantime, we're trying to implement temporary building restrictions to help mitigate the fast pace of growth. Nicoya has given us evidence and sent all types of documentation showing upwards of 42% increase in permits, and yada, yada, yada. So spare all the details. Point being, Nosara is growing really fast. It's gotten very popular. A lot of people want to be here. It's getting expensive, and we need a plan reguladora, and we need a plan reguladora like yesterday.
Yes.
But it's probably not going to happen tomorrow. So what do we do in the meantime? And that's where the temporary regulations came from. I apologize for butchering some of that, but it gets the main point across.
It makes a lot of sense. But so my understanding also, when we didn't really build here because we actually bought already pre-built places, but we've been in conversation with different real estate agencies, including yours, and we know that there are already some sort of like regulations in place. You know, for example, like how far from the border of your land you can build.
Like setbacks.
What are your setbacks? You know, and things like this. And at the end, what happens is that's why I was going back to that sort of generic concept of community, is that a lot of people even build without, you know, they obtain their permits and then they build without really taking care of that setbacks or things like this, because there is no enforcement. So like I had another conversation with someone who was telling me the builder should know what to do, and I'm just relying on them. And this person was actually a developer. So he probably knows exactly what needed to be done at every level. But then, like, you know, it doesn't really care as long as nobody finds them.
You've hit like 3 good points, right? Pause for a second, because lack of enforcement was a great point. So some people are saying, how are we going to put new regulations in place if we don't enforce the ones that we already have? Which is a fair enough point. And then the next point you made was, I'm just going to rely on the builder. Well, that's a risky proposition. What if the builders is not so nice? What if they are? Most builders are amazing people. I'm sure they are. But if we don't have enforcement for what's out there, it's a small town. The whole thing could get pretty messed up pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I serve, it's the reason why I'm here. And I'm terrified if someone would test the water of Guiones, especially in November or December, after the rainy season, or in May, actually, would be even worse, after the first rain come in. I'm terrified of it, because then all of a sudden we are in Los Angeles and need to be out of the water during the rainy days.
That project's actually starting. A lot of people are nervous.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it, because, I mean, our house actually has a pretty good septic system, the one here in the K section, because we have enough garden to spread it. Mm-hmm. But we recently bought an apartment built a building with 3 apartments in the G section. And I look at it and there is absolutely no way that the septic tank there has enough leach field to distribute. And the old G section is actually pretty low, and there is buildings all over around, and there is no way that septic situation there is safe. That's, at the end, that's what it is, So I actually, I've been looking a little bit about how you can do treatment plants to replace these sort of things. And I hope that there is some sort of system that comes to Nosara fast, that it's easy to implement for everybody, and even retrofit older septics to be
That's a key point.
Yeah.
The old systems, it's a tough subject. There's so many variations. The new houses, it's a lot easier to install a treatment system because the technology is advancing, the prices are coming down, it's much easier. But we still have a lot of old houses that are running off black water systems.
Exactly.
Are very inefficient gray water systems, if that. And that really is probably our biggest issue. What do I know? I'm just guessing. But I think that's one of our biggest issues because the older construction was definitely not up to the standards of today. And a lot of the bad stuff that's coming out is not, I'm not saying the new builds are not guilty or culpable in any way. I'm saying the new houses run a lot more efficient than the old ones.
Yeah, I mean, there is more availability of better products as well and everything. I just
less
see
concrete.
I also see that, I'm not aware again because I never built, but I don't think there is some sort of like, let me take a step back. First project I ever did with my wife, I'm a photographer, but when I moved together with my wife, she had a house in upstate New York and we put a septic in for the barn. And, in New York, you need to apply for a permit, you need to do percolation tests, you need to figure out how big the leach field is and all sort of things. So I became familiar with the process about the concept on how waste goes into the septic and how it gets distributed through the land. And we're talking about upstate New York with like a bunch of land. So I don't think that there is any of that sort of process here at all in place where not everybody who builds, the constructors say, okay, we need to put a septic there. They're going to make it based on the number of baths, but there is no idea whether if you're building up the hill or if you're building close to the beach, how far or how long it will take for the waste to dissipate in a proper way through the water base in order to get into a safe zone instead of being just like basically dumped in the ocean. That's so things like this for me they needs to be addressed because we're a developing town. So going back to what I said originally, I wish we all have that sort of like awareness, and I actually think that most of us think that we do, but we are never fully aware, so like to go back to, what you, Cookie, and Jeff said, for example, the Gilded Iguana is an amazing project from, Jeff's mind of thinking about doing things the proper way. And I know he posted recently on recent media, the new project is doing the couple of houses, I think, in the G section. He put the treatment plants down. So like he's doing what he thinks is right. But then, from an overall perspective, he might not do everything right. And also sometimes you get into a place where I'm doing everything right, but I'm still doing it for me. So for example, and it's not Jeff case, I'm just talking in general, like there are people that take down trees, which, we all want trees. And I think replanting trees is a great thing. But if there's a tree that has been there for 70 years, that tree needs to stay. And if you're buying a lot for $500,000 and you're building a $300,000 home on it, and you get fined, $500 or $1,000, someone catch you cutting the tree, you don't give a shit that you cut the tree. So at the end of the story is a little bit about being able to actually do the right thing all the time. And I think the plano regulador or the temporary regulation could be a framework for people to reference to. Because we need something like that. So whether you want to build 2 stories or 3 stories, that could be agreed upon by a large community, a vote, whichever way you want to do it. But at a certain point, if we decide that the height of a building needs to be 9 meters, then, it's going to be 9 meters. So that's not up to debate anymore. It's not up to, I believe that the 11 meter is good enough. I believe at 7 meters, it's too much. It's, okay, it says 9 meters. We need to be within 9 meters. You need to build a septic thing. You need 100 square meter of leach fields because you have 4 bathrooms. That's what you need. End of the story, so like, and then there is a problem of enforcement, which we can talk about. And I actually have an idea, which might be questionable.
Let's hear it.
But it goes back to the social media that we spoke about, so for me, it's interesting. Like, we all have this sort of kind of resentment towards social media. Like, we all are in it, but we resent it. As a photographer, I hate Instagram, but I love Instagram at the same time. So we all are in the same place. And I think, though, that let's look at a small community. I mean, let's look at Costa Rica. It's 5 million people. Okay. So Rome is 6 million. New York, it's 20 million. So Costa Rica, as Cookie pointed out in one of your podcasts, could be the perfect example for experiments on what things could happen. Nosara is a small portion of it. Okay. So if Costa Rica says we're going to have 25% of our land preserved and green, parks and stuff, in Nosara as a community, we can safely say we want 50% of every lot to be green. Because we want to show how good the place can be. Let's take the same thought and put it into social media. Okay. So what if we're all using these freaking Facebook groups for selling things, buying things, to know if a traffico is in town, to know which is the best chiropractor in town, Why don't we consider using social media in a way that serves the community as in the part that the community is lacking? Because the government is not going to be able to bring enforcement here and look at things, and I'm putting out there, like, is there a way that the social media could become a place where people use it to discuss and enforce things, So, for example, and I'm saying this, like, my neighbor, is not my neighbor. I'm just like, someone is building a house, they can post the plans of their septic tanks on social media. There is a group where all the new buildings are up and all the documents about the new buildings get uploaded. So if you have a question whether we're doing something right or wrong or within that, you can see it there. So it's not like an enforcing in the sense of policing, like me telling, hey, this guy's building, let's check what he's doing. It's more the sense of, hey, this is what I'm doing within these rules. So we all know. And there is no, the coconut telegraph about people saying things about someone else and stuff like that, I met with the NCA. We decided these trees are going to stay. All the other trees are cutting. This is the plan of the map we're doing. This is what I'm enforcing. And that's what happened. So next time the neighbors see you cutting trees, they know that you're actually doing the right thing and not the hiding nasty thing of cutting the good trees.
That's interesting. So pause for a second, because you just covered a lot of ground. You said you're a photographer and a videographer. You hate Instagram and you love it. You hate Facebook and you love it, right? That was a really good point, that an analogy that you're getting to, because we all love the nature. We all want the monkeys. We want the trees. We want all these things, but we also want to live here too. And building a house basically it's a very similar kind of analogy. You want to have a nice house to live in here, but you also want to have you want to have your cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we were going to do a group that was it would have to be like a voluntary group if it's on social media. But I think it's interesting what you're saying. I've never thought about it in that way. A lot of my disdain for social media is if someone wrongly accuses someone and they didn't have their facts straight, but it starts this whole gossip thing. And that happened a lot in security. And it happens a lot with construction. Like, for example, some people think there's nature preserves in a spot where there's not a nature preserve. So people get really upset. They're like, they're tearing down the nature preserve. Well, actually, no, they weren't. They might have been doing everything right. But because we don't have a spot for people to verify that, it goes as an accusation. And then it starts a fight. And then I'm just turning off my Facebook account. And then other people keep recycling it. And then we're arguing about the wrong thing. What you're saying, if I understand it right, is what if there was a spot for people to say, hey, I'm doing this project over here. Here's how I'm doing it. I think we're doing it right. If we're doing it wrong, let me know. But this is what I think. Check it out. Anyone can look at it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It kind of like reverts the thing where instead of becoming an accusatory place, the social media, it becomes a proactive place.
Like an uplifting kind of place.
I mean, again, it's social, it's community. I'm sharing with the community what I'm doing rather than doing it behind closed doors and someone open the door and say, you're freaking doing this. It's just
It's an interesting idea.
It's just an idea, like I was thinking, because, I know you came here like, what am I going to talk with Rich? I mean, who am I to say anything around, So I'm like, can I just maybe come up with some good ideas?
Yeah, man, keep them coming. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Are you going to moderate it so when it gets all nasty and crazy?
That's a nasty and crazy is hard, like I actually, I really have a hard time with that part, like it's...
I do too. You're not alone. I do too. I'll share this with you. So Jeff's podcast launch, was it last week, I think?
Yeah.
Within 3 days, I had several messages and phone calls of how horrible I am. Cookie's podcast launched yesterday. Last night and this morning, I got several messages saying how horrible I am. And I don't do well with that. I'm kind of a sensitive guy. Yeah. I really am. You and I met off of a controversy on something I wasn't even involved in, but it crushed me to know that somebody was out there feeling bad. Like, I'm really sensitive. So I'm trying to get the dialogue, but even when you're just trying to get the dialogue, sometimes people misunderstand that. They take it as you're advocating something or you're taking sides. And on your social media idea, I guess what I'm saying is you would need someone to monitor it so that when it goes sideways, somebody could be like, hey, you're missing the point of this.
Yeah, that could be, like that's, I'm just, throwing out there. Actually,
I nominate you.
No, there is one thing that I have to say, I watch both Jeff's and Cookie's podcast, the last you put out, and as I said, I don't know if I said to you during the podcast or before, but like I met with both of them before, for separate reasons. And I really like both of them, like I think Jeff for certain kind of things is bringing creative new ideas to Nosara, like the mountain bike and the stuff like this. And I think he's really honestly trying to do his best in what he thinks is the best environmental way. He comes out more as a confrontational in this story with NCA and things. Yeah, but, and then I watched Cookie's podcast and I was looking at her, I'm like, I cannot believe how great she is in always turning towards the positive and non-confrontational side. She always kind of like look at things around, look them around, and instead of going, you're doing wrong, it's like, yeah, but you're also doing this thing great, and let's focus on what you're doing great. And I think that's pretty rare quality nowadays, and if you all could take Cookie's approach and put it into, like your podcast or like, Facebook, social media groups or things like this, that approach about, hey, let's look at the good instead of just focusing on the bad is a great way to move forward. Because at the end of the story, and again, I just have different opinions. I have nothing against Jeff or nor Cookie and nothing against anybody, is, like I prefer Cookie's approach with Jeff's approach. And what I posted on as a comment was like, hey, like you're basically threatening to do lawsuits and things, but I don't see you coming and saying, I'd rather have 7 meter high rather than 9 or 12 rather than 9, whatever it is. I don't see points being discussed which actually people can agree or disagree upon. While Cookies makes a more compelling arguments about specific facts and what they're doing to address them. So at the end of the story, for me, is about addressing real single elements of conversations rather than going into the I'm right, you're wrong part, and it's very hard on social media. I got dragged in a bunch of different arguments in the past myself, because I like principles and, as I told you, I was almost scared to post my comment on your thing just in, it's a small town. People might think that, Jeff might take offense, you might take offense because the last time we spoke, we actually spoke many times after, but because we had a previous disagreement, I don't know how Rich is going to take if I say something which, might read wrong. So at the end of the story, like people are really afraid around here to come to the podcast, speak their mind or say their opinion around things. And at the end, there is this sort of like buzz, like kind of murmur happens, that few voices come out and nothing else gets done. So it's almost like we're all dragging in mud without anybody saying, hey, let's do this.
You're right. The unfortunate thing of this, and I'm not trying this isn't like Cookie versus Jeff, right? It's really not. I have mad respect for both of them, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, because at least they spoke up, and that gave us an opportunity to advance the dialogue. So it's kind of a tough situation that they're both in, quite frankly. Cookie leads an environmental organization that has to make some decisions that are going to be unpopular, and they're very visible. So she has a lot of pressure on her. Jeff is in a very challenging situation because he's courageous enough to stand up and say, hey, I don't agree with how this is being done, and I'm going to vocalize it in this small town, knowing that people are going to turn on him. But he still came in here and he spoke his mind. So I have, whether I agree or disagree with him, I have a lot of respect for his willingness to speak up. Now, the really challenging thing for him in particular, though, is the people who might really be against it, like who are the ones doing the lawsuits and all the crazy stuff, they won't come on here and talk. They won't say it. They're out there. So, and I know that they're out there because they approach me a lot of the time. And a lot of them try to come get me to be on their side. And that goes for both sides, actually. Yeah. So it's a tough situation because he's not at liberty to say a lot of the stuff that maybe he even thinks. So I think some of the times when it's lacking exact details, I think he's in a tough spot legally. And if he says the wrong thing in this podcast with some, like it's just a really awkward situation. And the problem is people not speaking. And again, that's why I reached out to you and I was like,
let's talk.
This is great. Finally, somebody asked, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it meant a lot to me. So I didn't receive it wrong at all. It was just the opposite.
I actually think, I could tell that Jeff at a certain point was actually reading something out of, it looked like prepared statement of some sort.
He's talking to a lot of people. It's scary.
And, maybe, and I'm just suggesting here, maybe like, what to say, the debate. Let's take a step back. Let's forget the legal for 1 second. Let's have a conversation and see if we actually have disagreements. Because if a disagreement is about whether it should be a 2 or 3 story building, it should be 9 meters or 7 meters. Sorry to go back to that, but it's just a simple example. It's like, then that's not really a disagreement. That's just one point that needs to be debated until we find the right number. It's just a number thing. But the disagreement would be whether there should be a height restriction or not at all. So then they're very separate places, and then how do we bring that together? It's not going to go through legal courts. At a certain point, someone needs to agree on something. And a debate or like some sort of like moderating thing where you actually address every single aspect of the proposed temporary plan could be a great thing, so where people can say, listen, I don't like this because I think this is too limiting or because this is too offensive, whatever it is. Like I had a friend of mine who came to our house yesterday and she was thinking about putting a plan in for their house, for the development, because they wanted to put it before a temporary regulation get accepted so they can be more than 9 meters. And I'm like, you know how much 9 meters is? She looked, that's a lot, and then I have her look at the, at our ceiling, which is 4 meter high. And she's like, holy shit, that's 4 meters. So 9 meters is plenty of, in my opinion. For the other people, it's not. But what I mean is like, and I don't mean to disrespect my friend either. It's just like, sometimes people don't really even like.
Man, you're always picking on everybody and starting fights.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is that like, sometimes it's even like you don't even realize that you actually agree in what's being proposed because you don't want you don't not want that. Doesn't make sense. It's double negative, but that's.
We'll roll with it. I get you. I know what you're saying. No, that's a good point. A lot of people on this subject we're talking about right now actually agree.
Yeah,
but they're fighting.
I know.
It's true. And also it goes the other way. There's people who agree right now who actually disagree, but because they haven't communicated, they haven't figured it out yet.
They don't know that they're fighting.
It's true. Like a couple months ago, I drew out a chart and I was going to actually do like a quick, just like a 2 minute. It's like, all right, everyone's pissed off and everyone's fighting, but you don't really know what you're mad at. If you believe this, I almost launched it and I pulled back. I was like, you know what? I talk about this all day long. I don't make a dime from this. Yeah. I just get yelled at a lot, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I also think I'm the guy to do it. I do. I'm the only guy. I'm not the real estate world, in the yoga world, the surf world, there's a lot of competition in tiny little Nosara. So I'll say this. I'll start with the positive. Let's practice Cookie's approach. Yeah. Let's look at the positive. The positive is communication now is better than it's ever been. Like from the day I got here to today, there's more cooperation, there's more cohesiveness, there's more positive happening than ever. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect or even close to it, but I am saying it's better than it has been in the past and today a little bit. Just if you work there, it's back to the old Republican, Democrat, religious, Catholic, Protestant, or pick your analogy. I'm not going to support it just because it's them. Like for this podcast, how many of my competitors do you see sending out information that they say they believe in, but they don't want to do it because they don't want to support me because they're thinking back to real estate or money?
Well, that's actually interesting for me, like from a cultural perspective. I'll go back to that because what you're saying is interesting how it kind of reverts the American dream in a way. When you go to Italy, like you have one car dealer in one neighborhood, and that sells one brand. Then you go to another neighborhood, and you have another car dealer that sells a different brand. You go to the US, and you got a neighborhood where you have 10 car dealers in a row. And I always appreciated that because the concept was like, someone is going to come and is going to buy a car. Whether one day is going to buy mine, the next day is going to buy yours. You know, so like the next customer is buying the next one, you know, but we're all here. So kind of like interact with that thing. Like we all going to get one sale, one of us particularly, but we all going to get one sale every time. In Italy, if a dealer would open next to the other, they would be at war immediately because like you're stealing my customer. I feel like that in Nosara, it kind of in the real estate world, kind of reverted back to the Italian mentality in a way, you know, where, okay, you know, someone's coming here to buy a lot. You know, one time is going to buy a lot from Surfing Nosara, another time from Century 21 or Remax or whatever it is. You know, like, instead of being at war, it's like, your guys should all like part community, providing the same thing, create the MLS where, you know, like one time I'm going to get a client, another time it's going to be yours. But because it's a small town, it created this sort of like little pockets where I'm not going to sell the lot from that office. I'm going to sell the one from this other office because and it's kind of weird in a way, you know, like
kind of weird.
You know, you're part of it. You know, like from an American mentality, it's really the opposite of what America's is.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why I'm an American citizen, because I love that sort of like open competition. Let's all be, you know, competing in a nice way, not in a like behind the door kind of thing.
Yeah, that's all good points. Yeah. I try to explain it this way. It's kind of like 1942 as far as real estate goes here. And like when I got here, people wanted to sell their listing and they wanted to get both sides of the commission. And they could. If you've been here long enough and you had a deep enough database, well, why should I go show those other companies' properties? Yeah. I'm just going to sell mine. And I hope that they don't shop and they just buy from me. And that mentality still exists with many of the realtors
and it's
here.
Actually a little bit unethical in many ways.
It's extremely unethical because, excuse me. So if you go to the States or Canada or Europe or basically anywhere in the civilized world, you can go meet one realtor and they'll tell you everything that's out there because they have a central registry and MLS to look at. And they'll be like, oh, well, here is this. And the marketplace kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So why in 2020 do you roll into Nosara and need to go talk to all the different offices just to see what's out there? It's absurd.
It's a little absurd. And also like, you know, when you talk about I bought and sold a little bit of real estate, so I know how it works. But if you represent both sides, that's the part where it's unethical, because at a certain point, like you're not representing one side fully in their interest.
And I'm telling you straight up, in this town, and in Costa Rica, that was like the goal. And sometimes it's even selling your own property.
Yeah.
So it's like that
it's
completely backwards. It's so backwards. Now, that being said, here's how I think it should
so
be.
I think that honestly, like, and I'm calling this, I think the people from, like, that's one reason of my comment I call the real estate. Say, guys, what do you think about the regulation? Because I keep on hearing a lot of stuff, and you guys hold a bunch of power. You're selling lots, you're telling people, advisors, who to build with, what can they build, what can be done. So you actually do have a voice on this. So what do you think about it?
I think we're the portal, like the beginning of the process. I think we have the first exposure.
You're the one who educate people about what can be done
and
here.
There is a lot of opportunity to do good or to do bad in that relationship.
And so that's why, like, I kind of called out the real estate agencies. And I think, here I can also say, why don't you guys come and speak with Rich about it? Even if you're competitors or whatever, and speak your mind about what's happening,
They keep preaching that, keep telling that, keep typing that, because that's what we need so far. At least the leader of Remax came in, so we know where Jeff stands. He's been on here 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brandon Richardson from Wanderlust. He just recorded.
Okay.
We've known each other a really long time, and I'm proud of him for coming in. I'm after Bram. Bram was my first friend in Nosara. Jesse's been on the podcast 3 times, I think, already. I really want to get Bram, and I'm trying to unify the main offices and at least let people get to know who they are. And if you get dialogue going, that's how we get results.
It's also, to be honest, like, I'm personally looking at this at Reach podcast, like completely detached from any surfing Nosara relation.
I work crazy hard for that to happen. Yeah. I've never sold nothing. I've never said anything about me.
So exactly.
Ever.
So like that's what I'm saying. It's about personal relations. You try to bring people for different things, and maybe you can bring someone from Surfing Nosara itself to speak about it. Yeah. So like it becomes your neutral ground for people to speak about this.
I need that mentally because my life is basically doing a job that I do so I can live here and provide for my family. But I don't wake up in the morning and say, real estate. It's literally what I know to do. And I'm pretty good at it. It's what I know to do to provide for my family and live where I want to live and raise my kids where I want to.
There is a lot of things you can talk about, because now we're stuck into the regulatory plan and the environment and things like this, but there's a lot of things that can be addressed in Nosara. We all know about it, from surfing and etiquette in the water to, travels and the speed on the road, as you say.
Well, you're right. Yoga business. We remember Yoga Dude came in last week and I said, what's the most competitive business in all of Nosara? And he's like, hands down, yoga.
Oh yeah.
Like it's incredibly competitive. And just go down the list. Like you just said, at every category, people are trying to fight like holy heck to live here and support themselves and their families. And there's a lot of friction that comes off that. And unfortunately, that friction, because we're in the middle of nowhere, back to real estate, we don't have an MLS. People could just get an ego. I don't like you. You don't like me. Fine. Yeah. I'm going to be over here. You be over there. I'm going to try to get mine. And I'm going to try to convince them not to do anything with you because you're going to do it with me. Here, the reality, though, is the world co-brokers. The whole world co-brokers. That's the thing.
Like, if you're going back to what we said before about social media in a proactive way, like, what prevents someone to create an MLS group? You know what I mean? Like, so,
you want me to answer that? Because I've been trying.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. We actually have, back from 2007, we still have the template done. Shout out to Eric on this. A Nosara shared listing system. What prevents it is the ego and the fact that people can get away with not doing it.
Yeah.
Now, in my case scenario, I've only been here 11 years. I still know what it's like to have an MLS. I still know what it's like to co-broker 99.9% of all the transaction. I'm from that. So I was very confused and still am confused. Why don't we do that here? That's how the rest of the world works. Yeah. And if someone comes into town and I meet them, there's no need for them to go to someone else if I show them everything. And every office should treat each other that way. We'll all sell more. The people coming here will have a more pleasurable experience. And the marketplace will do what the marketplace does and everyone will be better off.
Yeah.
But whenever one ego comes in and says, that messes the whole thing up.
It does.
So that being said, we're really close to a potential MLS. Well, really close. Maybe I'm being too hopeful. We're close. We're closer to an MLS right now behind the scenes than we've ever been. Like there's 3 offices right now that are talking pretty strongly. And the issue is getting the people who dislike each other so much. Some people in Rome, you like your one soccer team, your friends like the other. If you guys can just look at the marketplace as a whole and say, this is just the right thing to do for all of us, it doesn't matter that I hate that guy or that girl. it's just the right thing to do. That's kind of what we need to make it happen. People have to get over the ego and the extreme dislike of other people. Like, there's a lot of, yeah, that's it. Ego. That's my answer. It really is.
Yeah, it is. But that's the part where social media can prevaricate ego. I mean, it's an ego-centric place, meaning in the sense that people go there because they post their opinion and they feel good about being able to post their opinion. Mm-hmm. But then there is a part of it where you can actually go past the ego, because at a certain point, the group can overcome the ego. So if, I'm just making an example to clarify what I'm saying, but if there is a group where everybody would be able to post their listing, whether it's an agency or whether it's private people, and that becomes a place where everybody goes, you can have as ego as you want and keep your listing private for yourself. But then if 90% of people go to that group, your ego is lost. So that's one way to look at it. And that's what I'm saying, like before, for, it could be applied to regulation. It could be applied in many ways. We need to believe in the good nature of people, that they're not going to take it to attack others, but actually to be more sharing of their experience, which is a tough place to be right now.
Now we're moving into hippie talk, which
I'm not hippie. Like, my wife is
I'm
from
a wannabe
Woodstock.
hippie.
I'm not. My wife is from near Woodstock, so like her mom was actually a pretty strong hippie. I'm from Rome. From the center of Rome, so I could be the least hippie you can imagine. My life is pizza, pasta, soccer, and that sort of thing. So I don't come from a hippie place. I come from a place that, hey, it's a small community. I believe, sorry to digress, but I believe more in respecting people than hippie. I believe that if you're respectful of what's around you, whether it's a person, an animal, or an environment, then a lot can be achieved. And you should not forget to respect what's around you. Mm. And I don't think that's a hippie mentality. It's just a basic, I never went around, I got taught as a kid respect for older people. I would never go. If someone, my aunt or a friend of my aunt, would tell me not to do something as a kid, I would not do it because they're older. I've been taught not to disrespect elders in any community, even if they're like elder people in any community, even if it's not my community. So, I'm good?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's not too bad?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So, let's cut this. I don't believe in hippie. I believe in respect for other people. I believe if you respect the environment, if you respect the people, if you respect the animals, a lot can be achieved. And I've been taught as a kid about respecting everybody around me, mainly the elder, and then what's happening around. It's not about, you don't throw your garbage or your stuff on the street, not because you get caught and you get fined. You do because you don't want to disrespect the environment you live in first. So, I don't believe in hugging a tree as hippie-wise, but I do believe in not cutting the tree if it's been there for 70 years old and monkey go through it. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of a basic mentality.
Right. I see what you're saying. I would think a lot of what you're hitting on is awareness.
Yes, correct.
So I'll digress. I should have said this a long time ago, but I'll say it now. When people move here, a lot of the times they're coming from somewhere else in the world that has systems in place. They already have a zoning plan. They already have trash service. They have a firefighting system that's paid for the government. They have schools where the teachers show up and there's books and stuff. Like, when you show up here, I would say, and this is where the realtors could do a lot better job, in my opinion. We could really improve on this specific point. We need, when people show up, for them to understand that they're part of the solution. You're not just showing up to a place where everything's there and you just follow the rules and get away with whatever you can, which is what you had mentioned when we start. When you show up, you realize that, hey, listen, I'm now at this special place. I want to keep it special, but I have to do something to keep it special.
Yeah, and you look for information, you figure out what needs to be done, what you can do, I mean, you can ask, you go and, okay, there is an NCA, there is a real estate, like how much am I supposed to build here? What can I do on this lot?
I got an idea. I want to ask you a question. I was thinking an open house, like once a month for people just to show up and for this type of stuff, for information. A lot of people move here. They don't know. They just don't know. They don't know how to give back. They don't know what to do. It's confusing. I was thinking maybe we could get like an open house once a month where people could come and go, could come, learn, talk to other people. And I think I want to try that for like February. Maybe. The only issue is that, this is another one of my ideas that doesn't pay me anything. It takes a lot of time and I'm already way too busy and I've got money problems because I'm podcasting all the time. Yeah. But I think it's the right thing to do.
I think there is, and this takes time and money as well, but I think there is one positive side of the internet that I love forever is that you can find any information you want. Yeah. The problem here is that there is no repository of central information.
That's exactly right.
So the meeting once a month are a great idea, but to me, they're almost like a second step. The first step is like, hey, what can I build? Where can I read? I mean, personally, because I'm a member of NCA, I get the newsletter, I know what this thing is, but there is a lot of chat about the temporary regulatory plans, and it's hard to find the information.
Yeah, that's true.
Where do I go? Is there a website where I can just Google and see it clearly about it and see all the studies? So, a lot of things can be applied to that. I mean, Cookies mentioned that there are 7 public schools and all these programs happening around it. How do you know? How do you find them? So maybe, I know there is a Nosara.com. I actually have no idea who runs it and what's happening there, but maybe that's a place where a lot of this information can be placed. Again, going back into the place of using the internet as an aggregation of a community and not a place where people use it to punch themselves.
Maybe we could do that with the Nosara Times. That's a project that I'm involved in, and I'm basically doing it to get information out because we don't have a local news source that's really dialed in.
The podcast itself is great. I mean, about the first time you were doing the podcast and talking about the road and what was happening for the road, it was the best source of information to figure out what was happening. Because otherwise it's someone said that, someone says that other thing. I mean, half of the people in this town don't read Spanish, so they're not going to go into the Nicoya Gazette and see whatever the name is. And I personally, I speak Spanish, but I struggle to read legal documents in details.
People aren't.
I'm not going to spend the time doing it in English or in Italian. In Spanish, it's even harder.
The problem with the podcast is it's long. So if people see, hey, there's an hour. I don't have an hour.
You can cut this down to 10 minutes if you want. Don't worry about it. Just think.
No, man, you're spitting good stuff.
I like to chat.
My thought was with the podcast was, I'm going to lay a foundation of information.
Yeah.
And people right now, they're hearing your voice tone, your cadence, your speech, your facial gestures. They're getting to know you and your sentiment. Even if they disagree with you, they can see where you're coming from.
No, I haven't said anything specific in particular. We're just talking about ideas, but I don't have
it's across the board for everyone. What might be nice is if we could go back and cut them up and take the bullet points and try to shorten it. So that's...
Maybe you can find 1 or 2 ideas out of this hour-long conversation and just bullet point those and this happens.
We just need help with editing. We could use some volunteers or people to help. It takes 20 to 80 hours to do one of these episodes.
I know. I purposely stopped doing videos this year because I don't want to edit. And I think...
So you want a job for free?
No, but actually, I think, and we can call this out, that, how of enforcing people, even local people, for jobs. There is a need for a freaking video editor in this town.
There really is.
Someone who's a good video editor could be busy all the time.
You're right.
Right. And I'm just...
Let's add that to the to-do list.
Yeah.
Or to find list.
No, it's okay because, everybody likes to be outside and do things outside, and not a lot of people want to spend time in the computer when you're in Nosara. So I understand you don't want to be an editor, but it's a great place. I actually know a couple of people. I can tell them, but,
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
So on the subject of editing and video and photography, tell us about you because you're an accomplished photographer and you've got a good story to you. So share. I've
been photographer for almost 20 years now. I actually
You still had film.
I still had film. I started with film. Yeah, but actually I started with management consulting before that.
Okay.
I grew up in Rome. I did public university in Rome. I have a master's degree in economics, and I moved to London to be a management consultant. And then from London, I got hired in New York by PwC, Pricewaterhouse, which was one of the big agencies.
It's a monster.
It's a monster. I hated the monster, so I worked there for a year and a half, and then transitioned into a small branding agency in Soho, in New York. And I was the vice president of new media, which was the
Sounds
internet.
Fancy.
It was the internet then.
Oh, nice.
It was this new media. And after 3 years, I decided photography was my passion and that's what I wanted to do. And I quit my job to move to Australia and do surf photography. In that moment, I met my wife and I moved upstate New York instead.
So like,
yeah, so like I never made it to Australia yet, and I did start doing photography. I've been doing it pretty successfully for 20 years. I did mainly commercial and advertising jobs. It really slowed down in the past few years. That's one of the reasons why I kind of hate Instagram, because it was a great platform for photos, and then it became like instant consumption. I mean, people stopped giving great values to photography, and all of a sudden, I believe in, and this happens for everything. I believe in quality more over quantity, and
it's just the opposite.
It's really just the opposite, So
I think it killed the surf video too.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle looking. Like I read something the other day about someone that said, I have so many Instagram clips that I see all the time. I finally saw one surf video that I didn't see any clip around that took me into that place where I was 20 years ago, where a surf video was cool and you watch it over and over and over and over.
I really missed that. Yeah. I loved the video. When one came out, it was a big event. It was really exciting. Watch it over and over again.
I'm not like, every time my mind goes in that way, I go cookie wise. I try to think about the positive part, and I'm like, I don't want to be an old person reminding what happened. It's a different world. We actually have access to a lot of different clips. It's great in many ways. I know I can see things, and I know that kids can do things that weren't able to do before. Right. So let's focus on that part. It sucks that the photography, it's worth 1/10 of what it was worth 5 years ago, but
So what does that mean for you over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years?
I'm actually, I've been taking a little bit of a break in the past couple of years since we moved here. I mean, we moved here from Los Angeles, actually, and one of the ideas was to spend a little time here and go back and forth, and then we kind of love being here. Business-wise, it's different numbers and different money. So, at a certain point, it's like, okay, do I want to travel all the time? And do I want to try to get agencies to hire me through all over the world? I got in contact with some agency in San Jose for advertising and things like this. But I honestly got really tired, like the same way you're tired of real estate in a way. I got really tired of chasing jobs over and over and over and competing with people that maybe had more followers than me and they didn't even know how to use a camera, right? Because you get to a place where you spend $5,000 to hire a photographer or $5,000 to hire an influencer to take a snapshot, and that $5,000 makes much more sense for a company for the and I'm right. From a marketing perspective, I totally understand, so I'm not against that concept. So in the past couple of years, I kind of slowed down. We invested here in real estate. We're focusing on that part. I'm doing my own stock photography. So I'm shooting what I like and selling it, through stock. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but, and I'm chasing less projects, let's say, I'm taking my time to fall back in love with photography rather than, shooting things that people
getting
tell me
in the machine and going
the hamster wheel and stuff like that, trying to get, I want to meet this creative director, the creative director maybe can give me that job, I would love to shoot for a company, and I'm like, I shot enough companies, I shot enough celebrities, I'm happy with what I did, I can just shoot what I love right now.
Well, you're in a fortunate spot.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
The challenging spot is if you have to kill to eat every day and you have to get
exactly,
that's tough.
We're lucky enough that we saved enough money to buy the house where we live, and we bought an investment property. We get enough rental through it. So it's like I don't have to rely on bigger jobs for living.
Nice.
I can just make my life easier and go surf every morning, which is the reason why I'm here. So, but I do, in all honesty, I do miss a lot of photography. Like I do miss shooting so much, and I love big projects because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to be involved into that part. So I really miss that component. It's like
enough time goes by, you might get back in and take some choice jobs.
Yeah, I do. If a job comes, I'll take it any second if it's a job that I like, and I'm just not going to be trying to get meeting with every single creative director in town, hoping that they give me a job. I actually believe that 90% of the town or people that know me don't even know that I'm a photographer around here. So I'm like, I don't care, I don't need to. I just want to take the camera when I feel like it. So
yeah, I'm definitely jealous in that regard. Yeah. Wow. So let me ask you this. What do you like the most of this? Let me say it this way. What do you like most about this place? Like, what are your top 2 or 3, feel goods as far as Nosara goes?
So the first time that I came here, it was the second year that Stacey was invited as a resident teacher at Harmony. She was teaching yoga at Harmony. The following year, we moved to California that winter, and I stayed in California and she came here. And then the following year I came and I extended my trip 3 times, as most people do when they come to Nosara. Mainly was surfing. I was surfing 5-6 hours a day, And then we actually bought the house as an investment property initially. Like we're going to spend a couple of months a year here, and then the rest of the time we rent it. And then what happened is, long story short, the owner of the house we were renting in California wanted to move back to his house. And so we were kind of forced out because he needed his place back. And we're like, what do we do? And they said, let's try to live in Nosara and see what it is. And we just loved it, to be honest. There is a rhythm here that I really love. You're not bored. There is enough things to do. You're busy enough during the day. I mean, I'm recording a freaking podcast with you, at 9:30. What is it, 10 o'clock in the morning? It's like, I'm not doing nothing, I'm not sitting you've been on surf trips where you surf 2 hours in the morning and then you're at 2 hours of being dead, maybe reading a book, and then you surf other 2 hours. This town affords enough that you can be busy literally from the moment you wake up to the moment.
It's enough.
It's just enough. It's not like you're busy running errands or sitting in traffic. You're actually just busy living. Whether you like yoga, you like being physically active, whether you like surfing, whether you like just meditating or the jungle, it really offers you the opportunity to be doing that most of the day, and that's what I love about here. And that's hard for me, even as a newcomer, to see how fast it's moving. And that's why everybody can be really scared about the changes. And it's as you mentioned, do you want to go to North Guiones, and be looking for parking now? I don't want to do that. But on the other hand, it's great to go there and have 12 restaurants to pick from, Again, there is a lot of things we can address.
Well said. So let's transition into dislikes. What do you really dislike about this place?
There are 2 things I really dislike. One thing is what I said at the very beginning, the American mentality of coming here, I know better than everybody else. This is my piece of lot. I do whatever I want. And I'm saying this with someone who moved to America, love America, and I'm an American citizen. But that mentality is really, really hard for me. People that don't understand that this is a community. You're not just you. And it's not like you can be just you. It's fine, but you're not better than anybody else. And on that note, the other part, which is really hard for me, and is the real struggle of economic difference between us, and I put myself into the lucky position, and the locals, and you can look at Nosara locals, Guanacaste locals, San Jose locals, and expats, and you can see all the scales on how it moves. And it's really hard. And it's something that it took me a couple of years to adjust and accept, because at the beginning I kind of wanted to try to help everybody. But I think that helping everybody is the best way to help everybody is the things that Cookie are doing, that you mentioned, like trying to create a way for local people to become empowered rather than just pay more or whatever it is, because it's not.
We do. If I can jump in on this one, that this one's very sensitive for me. And I think what accelerated it was being involved in the security side of things for so long. If people don't have an opportunity, or if they don't have an education or the ability to get the jobs to have a good living, we're in a bad spot. And this is what you just hit on. And I try not to say many opinions on here, but I am very opinionated on this. We have a potential issue coming towards us in that foreigners can come get the higher level jobs because they have the education and the background and the training to do it. The people from San Jose will come in and get jobs because they have the education and the knowledge and they're able to get it. And in Nosara, we went from an agricultural society to high-end tourism like that. So we have a forgotten generation that's here right now. There's only so many lots that you can shop. There's only so many surf instructor at a basic level jobs. There's not much going around. Now, if the people who own the businesses from here can't hire the people from here, that's a problem. So that's when we get more crime, more drugs, and things start to spin out of control. And then that's also where we get a lot of the resentment. In Nosara, we don't have the resentment between Ticos and Gringos at the same level of, say, a Tamarindo or a Jaco, because no one was displaced. So it's kind of a beautiful thing. This all used to just be a cattle field, right? In Nosara, we call it Nosara, but let's just say the Playas de Nosara, Guiones and Pilata, and Las Huacas, and the D section and L section. That area was just a big failed golf course project. When they let the trees come back and the nature come, it created something very special, right? And then we have green areas interrupting the whole town, so there's not room for wide-scale development. It's all a beautiful thing. But Nosara town, back there behind the trees, as I call it, is sitting there. And if those folks can't get the jobs here, and because Nosara's also gotten expensive and it's went really high-end, it's not at the level of Jaco or Tamarindo. Like Spaciel said in her episode, if you come to Nosara, you got to pay to play. That also means you need to have a skill set to handle that higher level visitor. People who are staying at the Harmony or visiting Surf Simply, they're higher end people and they're paying a lot of money and they want to be treated how they want to be treated. And if we don't have the skill set to do that, we have an issue. Now, I guess the point I was back to what I was trying to say. In Nosara, we didn't have a Tico populace sitting in Guiones that got messed up and integrated all amongst. So for a long time, we've had a good run, but times have changed. It's grown. Now the places are connecting, and now we're having a lot of different economic. What am I trying to say? Stratosphere, stratifying. Yeah, and the lines are getting very, very clear. So I guess kind of where I'm at, and this is why I want to get a community center or some sort of system like that going. I think we have to now, because if we can't give opportunity to the people, that's going to lead to big, big problems down the road, and the ones that we don't want to have. And once that problem started, you can't fix it.
There's a couple of people that we work with that actually they went through the Viva el Sueño, and they got empowered through them to start their own business and doing their thing. And we work with them and we love it. So I actually love that initiative in a way that, like, basically even just the basic skills on how to transform what you can do into a business. That's a great starting point, but I think it's just, I think that's a great initiative, but definitely, as you say, that's something that I believe one way or another we need to address soon, so that we go back to be a community where, there could be economical differences. There is someone who is going to be the gardener and someone who's going to be the owner of the house, but that doesn't generate friction or problems in the long run for neither, And I'm not saying this because I want to defend my house. I'm saying this because I want the gardener to be happy. I'm just, because
or have whatever you want them to exceed at whatever level they want.
Yeah, and some people can be a gardener, some people can be a video editor, some people can be like running a successful business, some people can have can build on their family lot, with the help of everybody, and then rent it out. There is a lot of things that can happen, and I wish, we can speak at length about what can be done to empower everybody around us so that those economical differences start being a little less evident, because they really are hard for me.
Yeah, and that could solidify. That could get worse.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping someone watches this podcast and is willing to contribute financially or time-wise to help get behind this type of initiative.
Yeah.
Vive el Sueño, shout out to them. I helped when Christina first came through to set it up and got to know her fairly well, and lots of respect. But there's an issue. There's only so many people who can run a restaurant. There's only so many people who can have their own bakery.
Yeah.
So what we don't want to do is set people up to fail by having too much and everyone's owning their business. That's a little that's challenging. We need to train the army who can also get a job there in service, and then learn. If they want to advance, they advance. And if they don't, they don't. But like you said earlier, you want the gardener to be happy, and if he wants to advance his life, he should be able to do so. It shouldn't be us white folks, coming in and getting all the higher level paying jobs. Now, that being said, there is a solution. The only reason I have an opportunity here is because somebody doesn't want to work at the level I'm willing to work to do what I've got to do. So I see it as my mission to give the people here the opportunity to advance as much as they want and take it as far as they can. And I should live my life and pay it back with some interest. So my goal is to offset my existence here. I can't do it financially. I don't have much money, so it's not just handing money over. Yeah. What I do have is a lot of drive, and I really do care. I can do that. So there's other people who can too. Now, there's also people who are passing through, and hopefully someone listening to this right now who has money. They're like, hey, I'm busy doing whatever I do wherever I live, but I like what you guys are doing. I'll help fund that, and that's what we need.
Did you consider inviting someone from the Nosara community, some more like local individual in here, and
of course, yes,
see what the it was very interesting for me. Like, one thing that made me in a weird way feel part of a community last year and belong here was when unfortunately Juana passed, and Stacey and I were really close to her in a weird way, and we went to see Gato right away. We went to his house. We went to, to the funeral and everything. And it's just like that moment makes you realize that you're really all together. Like she was the most wonderful person that sells like, coconut there all day and always smiling and giving you the best hugs. That's us, that's all together. That's how I feel about this place, and I just, kind of to close, I kind of wish that everything goes into that sort of looking at the community that way, like you're not, what you're doing affects the community, no matter whether you're in your own little place or not. It just affects everybody. How fast you drive on the road, how many trees you cut, how much lights you put up, how tall you build, how much of your shit goes in the ocean, how many waves you catch, like when you're out there. So just, take a moment to think we're really a small, close community. Don't be afraid to think what you say. We're all friends here. If we're not friends, we don't need to be, but we don't need to hate each other for having different opinions. That's simply what I'm
saying. Well said. Your message is well received, and it's a good time for people to hear it. You can disagree and still communicate.
Yeah.
You don't have to hate each other and start a war over it and put your company against their company. We can dialogue, and I appreciate you doing that, leading by example. What are your 3 favorite restaurants in Nosara?
Oh, I really like Costa that just opened.
Tell us about it. What do you like to get there?
What I like what's the name? Sanchoco, the seafood sanchoco. It's like basically kind of it reminds me of an Italian fish soup with kind of a tomato base with some bread and everything. And I think Luis is doing a great job there.
Nice. What else?
Then What else do I like? I go for one specific thing at every single... You know how it is. After a while, you go like to the specific thing. I actually love going to Harmony because I think they're always extremely consistent and they're always incredibly kind and generous. I mean, that's one part that... Sorry to digress again, but like... Italian culture, it's fiery and passionate. American culture is much more like simple, but there is an arrogance behind. Tico's and, Cookie is kind of an example, but also you go to Harmony, they're incredibly kind people. And I love that. We should actually take an example on how nice Tico's are in general. Like, I haven't met one single Costa Rican person that was not nice to me. I mean, yes, there is some people that try to get around you and steal in your house and whatever, but like in general, like normal interaction, Tico people are always extremely nice and kind. So sorry to digress, but Harmony I love because of you always feel there and everybody is always so nice to you. And then what else do I like food wise? You got me here. Those are my two favorites. My two favorites.
What do you like to get at the Harmony?
I like the coconut fish soup.
Okay.
I like the rolls. At the juice bar, I love the coconut chia. How do you say smoothie? The coconut chia smoothie that I love.
Okay, so I'll help you on number 3. So it can't be a fish soup.
Okay.
And you're from Italy, from Rome. So where do you go for pizza or Italian food here? Okay,
so I love Nicola Caffefiore as a person, but I cook pasta at my house. So I don't go to him as often as I would like to, just I go to chat with him because my main to-go thing is cooking pasta at home. And I actually make my own pizza at home, but...
So this is a bad question.
But I do like Olivia's. Even if it's not very Italian, I really like it. And I love Carlos there and everybody. So and actually... I mean, I like the Peruvian place a lot. I like the Argentinian place a lot. So I like kind of everything around. It's just like when you talk about my favorite, it's like, where do I want to go now? Most of the time I feel like having a coconut fish soup. Let's go to Harmony. I feel like being in a nice environment. Let's go to Costa. I feel like a burger. Let's go to Burger Birra Local. So like, that's how I think. I've been around enough to have that sort of... like it happens in every city. If in New York was the same thing. What do I feel like today? I want carbonara. I go to that place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want sushi. I go to that place. Yeah.
So do you think aliens exist?
I do. Do you know about the Fermi paradox?
I don't think so. What is it?
Okay, I'm a big sci-fi geek. So the Fermi paradox, Fermi, it's like one of the guys that is responsible for the nuclear kind of thing, one of the major scientists, physicists. At a certain point, apparently, there is this conversation that happened with all these great physicians that where they were going statistically about how many habitable planets there could be in any given moment in the universe. And they run through the numbers, and like there could be enough stars like the sun and enough planets. So at the end of the thing, I don't remember the exact number, but they're saying like there must be about 5,000 alien species right now. So the paradox is, where are they? That's the whole point. Where are the aliens? Another thing that and I'm sorry to geek completely in here, but I love this stuff, is imagine, we're here, imagine the ants that you probably have at your house that have their own thing and they go back and forth and they, they live in their, in your garden. Okay. They have no clue that 5 minutes away, there is Route 160 where people are flying in cars and motorcycles, and they don't even have a clue that actually people come here on planes. So we could be the ants, and, like a couple of light minutes away, there are people flying by, and we have no freaking idea about it.
So it's a strong guess from you with some good thought through points. I like that. If there was someone in Nosara who you could sit down and talk to, say 30 minutes, an hour, just a cup of coffee or breakfast or something, who would you like to talk to above all else? Like, who would you like to get to know a little bit better or hear from?
That I don't know? Actually...
Or even someone you do, whatever.
I love talking to everybody. If you see me at the coffee bars of Ololaya, I always chat with somebody. I actually think that this place is plenty of great, amazing people, and
That's
as I
sure.
said at the beginning, we all started this thing, but I enjoyed my conversation with Jeff as much as I enjoyed my conversation with Cookie when I had them. So like, I really,
Is anyone out there though you'd like to meet that you haven't talked to yet? Or you haven't talked too much that you want to...
I haven't met a lot of the old-timer, the people you mentioned that started the NCA and everybody, I don't know them that well. I kind of keep a relatively low profile, I believe, whoever I meet, but, in general, I don't...
Hey, if you ever get a chance, I've got some good ones, some good podcasts with a lot of the old-timers.
I need to go back and look. I'm not actually... I don't watch much. I don't listen to many podcasts, and I watch some, but, I'm not the... perfect guy for that.
Yeah, no worries. But they're out there. We got more coming. There's one Tico family that's been here for generations. I mean, a long time. I'm trying to get them to come in. Now, they don't know what a podcast is, obviously, but we're trying to get them to come in and share their story.
That would be nice. Yeah, I'll actually. At a certain point, I was looking at a piece of land kind of farther away with a friend. Not for me, he was looking. And he told me the old story. You could see that there was a settlement of a family living on the land, that they lived there for generations, like eating out of the trees and stuff. And to get some of that old wisdom, to see how people used to live and used to treat the jungle, it would be pretty amazing. I love the idea.
All right, well, stay tuned. We're going to get some more of that. Before we go, is there any shout outs or people that you just want to reach out to or any particular message you'd like to get out there?
One message I have, actually, I'm very, and hopefully I don't steer whatever, there is, as you see, we have a lot of problems, but we're getting to be a lot of people in the water. And I got hit a couple of times. My wife got hit in the eye once, it's getting to a place where we really are a lot. So I kind of, I want to say one thing mainly is that one wave is not worth hurting anybody. And that sort of message should be communicated from the school to the students, from us to the, to the people next to us and everything. Let's consider for a second where it's a lot of people in the water. Let's be careful out there because it's getting a little crazy, man, a little too crazy.
It's a pretty good message.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rich.